Hello and welcome to episode 37 of Just Keep Writing,
a podcast for writers, by writers, to keep you writing.
I'm Marshall.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Will.
Oh, snap. What's up?
What's going on?
No, it's awesome to be
back. Welcome back.
Will is back, and Will is going to stick around. We've decided to just keep him, I think is what we decide, right, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, we officially extended the offer out last week, and happy to say that.
Did he
Will
say yes?
Didn't even say yes. He just said, "Okay, I'm gonna go do this, this, and this," and we're like, "Okay."
We just started taking over,
and we're not mad at him about it. I'll tell you that much.
So not at all.
The top of the show, we're going to talk housekeeping for a bit. Some stuff has changed. What have we done, boys? We got a website. We have things happening. Tell the people.
We've got a lot going on right now. Will, I'm actually going to throw this one to you because you've been running our social media. Could you kind of talk about that and what you've been able to do so far?
Sure. I'm the social media maven, everyone. Great to meet everyone. We started our Instagram at Just Keep Writing Podcast, and we are on Twitter at Just Keep Writing with an N and a number 1. It'll be in the show notes.
Yeah.
With the Instagram, though, specifically, I'm really heavily going into that first. What I really want to do as a group, like our goal is to have a community, and to really each day highlight an author, their book, whether it's upcoming, we're going to tag the author. We're going to, make sure we do some fun Instagram stories to really just create that type of community. So if any of the listeners have any short stories coming out and novels, please reach out to us. You can DM us through Instagram. You can DM us through Twitter. We will make sure that we put you on there. And while our reach is small right now on Instagram, it will be very, very large within the tens of thousands in about 4 months because I know what I'm doing.
And we have fancy new emails. You can reach out to us that way. That'll be in the show notes as well. We also have Discord. Please don't forget Discord. And we love our Discord. And that's the main reason Nick and I started this show, and why we're bringing Will on is to help strengthen the community that we've already have. We have these amazing folks sitting in Discord, talking about their writing, talking about what's going on, conferences, all that kind of stuff, and what we're doing. And we just want to broaden that and highlight you guys. So this is great. And I'm so happy to have Will on. And this will be his first episode on 37 episodes in. Well, technically as a co-host, he's been on a few other times.
I was a special guest star.
Special guest. Yes. Featuring,
Yeah, I love it.
So what else do we want to talk about, guys? We have some other housekeeping stuff, conferences and stuff. Where do you want to go next?
WXR.
All right. Yeah. So that's the big one. Those of you in our community, especially in the Discord, the day we're recording this is literally the day before Surrey opens up, and registration for that is important. And this episode will come out a couple days after that. So we're just using this as a context, but WXR and Surrey are meeting up and doing virtual this year. WXR as a cruise. And those of you that don't know, it's Writing Excuses Retreat. They canceled their cruise aspect, and they're teaming up with Surrey and doing a virtual event in October. So, and we'll have a link in the show notes to all of that. It'll be probably too late to register, unfortunately, and it's probably going to fill up pretty quick from what Will says. That fills up within a couple hours, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, last year was an hour.
Ugh. So either way, hopefully we'll be able to, those of us that attend, I know I'll be there in some capacity. I'm not sure if these guys will be there or not, but we'll report back and talk about anything we can around that event when it comes up. But yeah, that's just the nature of the beast this year. I mean, obviously we're not cruising, so that's the big part, which is a huge bummer. This would have been the first year Will was supposed to go. Nick and I were going to room together for the first time, even though everybody thought we were rooming together this whole time, which is hilarious. But yeah, no, so I was looking forward to it, but next year we'll cruise again. Hopefully
we will
be cruising because this COVID is going to be done.
We got to deal with this, man. We got to deal with it. And on that note, people have to stop pretending it's not a thing still. Can we stop that?
What?
Come on, wear a mask and be safe. Protect people.
I'm sorry.
Otherwise, we're all going to be stuck at home again.
Well,
That cracks me up when people are like, it's just the flu. Well, welcome to New York, where we had an outside morgue of our hospital and body bags were building up.
It's heartbreaking, man. This whole thing has been crazy. This has been the craziest year. And this is something the three of us talk about all the time. And it seems like every day it's something else. So I don't even know anymore.
I'm still jobless after a month.
Right. Did you say that on the last show? After you lost, did you say you lost your job and you were looking?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Well, hey guys, I got laid off back in end of May. Here I am.
It's out there now.
Almost started July, and I'm unemployed, or as some say, looking for opportunity.
Oh, I like that, dude. And you are. You're out there. You're looking.
I'm not being lazy about it by any means. You know, throwing at least 10 to 15 applications a week to places as they open up. It's just the market right now. No one really knows what's going to happen with the economy in the next 6 months.
And I know, and the reason I bring this up too is you're not the only one. I know people in the Discord, folks out there looking for jobs. The whole world is topsy-turvy right now. So we just want everybody to be as creative as you can, given the circumstances, honestly. Create what you can, right?
And sometimes getting out of bed is a win.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If that's all you do, it's a win.
I'll tell you what's going to get me out of bed in the morning tomorrow is I made a tea time for 8 a.m. So I'm going to be popping out of bed to go play some golf.
That's amazing.
I'm excited about that. Have I talked about that yet?
It sounds nice. You did.
All I know is I'm a little jealous.
Yeah, you should be.
Because I have no one to go with me at weekday right now.
I just play by myself.
Yeah. See,
you won't go by yourself, Nick?
No, they wouldn't let me. They won't let you right now. Or
your courses are too busy. That's why.
Our courses are too busy.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay, so we talked about social media, we talked about conferences and stuff. Before we get into our topic and what we're talking about this week, let's talk about should we talk about our writing? I feel like that's something we need to do as a group often these days.
Yeah, we need to do it like every episode.
Like every episode. I mean, considering we're a writing podcast, we should talk about what we're working on, what we're looking at. For sure. I know for me, I'm working on FIYAH Magazine still, that piece. I know Will read it. I'm going to send out, I'm going to edit it and send a version out probably to Nick, before I go camping in a couple days, which I'm really excited about.
Ooh, I'm so jealous.
So I've got a couple other publications I might try to hit up by the end of the month, but the end of the month is coming up a little quick for me. Mm-hmm. So there's that.
So quick.
For the end of the month for FIYAH?
Yeah.
Okay, well, there's always other magazines too.
Oh, I know. This piece is like the theme. So that's why I'm yeah.
Totally. But that's such a good piece that if you miss FIYAH for this one,
yeah,
it's so good.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
You can send it to like Clark's World or when Lightspeed opens, I know you really like aiming for FIYAH. I love their stuff.
Yeah, no, I just,
FIYAH's done really well over the last couple months, I feel like, with their issues.
For sure.
I've read them since they opened. I love their stuff. It's like they put up good work.
Which, hey, Troy, if you're listening, come on. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, Troy.
Troy, are you listening? Hello, Troy.
Yeah. We don't hear your response yet, but we'll be looking forward to it.
Marco, I've got you booked.
Right?
What about you guys?
I just read the second read through of one of your short stories that I originally liked, but this time I like the emotional depth that you brought out in this short story was incredible. And you really just expanded upon what you had, right? So, talk about that. And where do you want to submit it to?
Oh, thanks. That's really nice. And I didn't pay you to say that, so that was really good.
Well, checks in the mail.
Right. I don't know. Paradigm Shift is the title right now. And I am going to do another draft tomorrow, and then I'll be sending it to Marshall. And once I get that feedback, I'll go through it again. And And I'm going to actually send this one out in July, which is nerve-wracking.
I'm excited for you. I know
I am too.
we've been talking for months, man. And you're like, oh, it's not ready. It's not ready. I'm not going to send it out. And I'm like, you keep encouraging us to send things out and giving us deadlines, and you're not sending anything out yourself. So I'm ready for you to do this. I'm stoked for you.
Yeah. And the story itself is, I would say it is heart-wrenching in a really beautiful way.
I can't wait to read it.
On that was really the goal that I wanted. At the end of the story, you felt really affected, and it was both sad and at the same time uplifting and beautiful.
Awesome. Can't wait to read it.
Yeah. You'll like it, Marshall.
All right, Nick, what are you working on?
Oh boy. Working on the ending of my Dax O'Shea book. That will hopefully be done in the next week. So I can send that over to our good friend Will. But I currently I got a couple things in the works of researching Renaissance due to I'm going to write a fantasy short story, possibly novel in that time period. And then I'm working on a Dark Cinderella story.
That's awesome, dude.
I've seen too many damn movies of the readaptation of Cinderella and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, who puts up with that nowadays? You know what I mean? Like, is that father really that good of a father if he left her with that terrible stepmom? Like he didn't know.
You always know, right? You always know, right?
I would feel like you do, or you're just so dumb and ignorant that like you got to highlight that. So I want a Cinderella that may or may not, butcher some people. I don't know.
Killer Cinderella. I'm in.
Dude, right?
Love it. I can't wait to read it.
Yeah. So, and hopefully, July's right on the corner. I'll get some feedback from Will on my my novel. So I'll probably be crying a little bit.
Oh, you're not going to cry.
You're not going to cry.
Coddling myself in the corner.
You're going to take it. You'll probably wet your pants, change them, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. Just be prepared for that. Have a change of pants. You'll be good.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, just record it so I can listen to it over and over again in the shower as I cry. Okay.
That's a good image.
You were in the military, bitch. Okay, I'm sure, you can, toughen it up. Okay.
Yeah, as you can see, we're not feeling too bad for you right now, buddy.
Yeah. Okay.
Look, I'll be honest. I'm gonna be fine. I've had some distance from this character. We're good.
Oh, that's great.
We're good.
Can I talk about my thing real quick? My other thing?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I guess I should talk about that. So last time we talked, I wrote this blog post on my website that people responded pretty well to. And one of my friends who works for NBC News passed it off to his editor, and a version of it got published on NBC Think today. So I was pretty stoked about that. So it's not fiction. It's basically an essay about what I've gone through as being a black man in a rural community growing up and what I've dealt with. And it was a pretty personal kind of story. And it's so far so good. It's crazy having something like that out there, but I'm just happy it's out there now. My anxiety level is a little lower, but my face is twitching a little bit. So I think that's a response to that. But I'm stoked. I'll put a link in the show notes to it. You've probably seen it on our social media already if you follow us. So, that's first published piece of writing that happened to not be fiction, which is weird.
Congratulations. We're excited for you.
Thanks,
Exactly.
guys.
Congrats.
Also, too, just so everyone knows, it's at NBCnews.com, and it's also at NBC News Think section, where it's all opinions and it's well researched. And Marshall did a great job of actually putting some facts in there that affects African Americans, especially during this time with George Floyd. So it is a piece that everyone should read. And I'm going to say it, specifically white people. Hear that perspective. Here goes Nick clutching his pearls.
He called you out, Nick.
He's the token white guy of the group.
I know, right?
We all know
you gotta have a white guy in the group, right? I mean,
exactly.
Wait, hold on here.
You know, you're like the white cisgendered guy, right? Yeah. You're the token one. Okay.
Okay.
We just have you on for a quota.
Yeah, come on, dude. We have to tick the boxes. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what though? I'm fine with that. Don't forget disabled military guy, okay?
Yeah, we got you.
True.
We got
Double checks. Double checks.
Answer patient. You're doing a charity service right now.
Man, we are checking so many boxes.
I mean, honestly, like once we start this non-for-profit, it'll be for-profit. We can be like, well, he's military, so we get a little bit more.
I was gonna say, can we make money though, please? Because that'd be good.
We are. We're 100%.
We'll get there. It's fine.
Yeah. I figure the nonprofit part will be once we start doing like community writing workshops for like inner city and for like, you know, people who have like a lesser means, because writing, we all believe this, writing is for everyone and it is a good outlet to let things go.
Yeah. And process things and deal with things and see parts of yourself that you may not have seen. And that's where we'll do it one day. Theoretically,
I think I would say that
after COVID.
Well, yeah, when we can leave the house again, right?
You know, I'm just saying, I'm down. I'm ready. I gotta make a presentation.
You are good at PowerPoint.
I know.
Shows.
I love it.
Like you are the Martha Stewart of PowerPoint.
Look, I know this is your first episode, Will, but my feelings are really hurt right now.
Oh, here we go.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Martha's a criminal. How could you compare me to her?
Here we go with his white fragility. Here we go with his white fragility, Marshall.
I'm much more of a
all right,
okay. You know what I love about this right now? What I love about this is with Will, now there's another dynamic that the audience, our community hasn't seen in or heard. We do this all the time. And this is why we have Will on here, is because we have these conversations where we sit down on Zoom and we talk smack and we have fun and we talk about writing and all this stuff. But like, this is the other level that we needed, I think. And now we just get to pick on Nick, and this is great for everybody.
I'm pretty sure I get made fun of every single time, and that's about it.
Oh,
which is fine.
Don't worry.
Nick, we're not making fun of you. We're building your character up.
Yeah.
Well, that's what the Army said too. And look at me now. PTSD and anxiety.
See, he's got that on you. He's got that. All right.
That's true.
Okay.
I like it. So my actually building our website, my wife saw, I was doing the host, right? Meet the host, Marshall, me, and Will. And she goes, wow, you guys have a really dynamic group. Like, you're all different. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, we totally are, aren't we? And that's something like you can see it, but like I didn't feel it or recognize it until she pointed it out.
Right.
Because I was like, we're just a bunch of writers, like having fun, and we're nerds. Like,
I feel like we have a common thread, but we're also geeks. We're also, we have a lot in common, but we're also all three of us coming from so many cool different places and meeting up here. And I think it's great. I love it.
Utah's all right.
No, I meant I was being symbolic different places. You know what I'm saying? Like metaphoric.
Yeah.
But also literally. I've been to Utah.
We are literally in 3 different places.
I mean, Utah's all right. I mean,
I've never thought I would be in Utah as much as I have in the last year. I've literally been there 4 years. Okay. Because in my world, if it's not New York, LA, Paris, or London, it doesn't exist. I'll even throw in I go to Tokyo a lot as well. But like pretty much like when everyone's like, why are you going to Utah? And I was like, it's just where my people are, not Mormons, but the science fiction writers.
Nick's face when
they're also there as well.
Nick's face when you said I go to Tokyo. He's like, neither of us have ever heard of you going to Tokyo. So that's hilarious. You've never one time told us you've been to Tokyo. Never. Yeah. And we've had so many, we've talked for countless hours.
I've been to Tokyo a lot. Mm-hmm.
Obviously. You said it.
Yeah.
I knew
We're not
about
calling you a liar. It's just new.
Streets in India.
What, I lived in India for a little bit? Yeah.
No, that you lived in the streets of India.
Yes, when I first arrived in India, I was sleeping on the street.
Well, that's something.
I didn't know about you going to Tokyo all the time.
Well, I've gone to Tokyo over a dozen times. That's like my other favorite spot.
So here's the thing, guys. We were talking about Patreon earlier, right? This is a good segue to come back to the podcast. We're talking about Patreon. There is a lot of stories the three of us have. Be kind of interesting. We could do some bonus stuff on the old Patreon. So if you're interested in hearing Tokyo stories or living on the streets of India, maybe we can put something like that together for our patrons.
And some of Nick's military stories.
Oh yeah, it'd be great.
And some of Marshall's life stories, being a dad, growing up in California.
I have weird stories. I used to cruise McHenry Boulevard, man, in Modesto.
Really?
Straight out of American Graffiti. That's where.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
You know, but that's what we did for fun. I lived about 30 minutes from Modesto. We used to cruise up and down McHenry. It was illegal. We got in trouble, but anyway, it was fun.
Whatever.
Anyway, different stories. All right,
I like it.
So what are we talking about this week episode?
Well, let me just explain this to you then, sir.
You explain something to me.
So, yeah.
Is this what happened when I went to do my chores a minute ago? You guys decided to blindside me with something new?
No, not at all. Is he reading from the show notes? That's what
that was me hesitating till I got the show notes pulled up to make sure I figured
as much. I got them in front of me. Go ahead.
Because we're prepared.
Always.
We are. I don't memorize it, but
it's okay. We'll get there. I'm the producer.
Most of us know, and if you don't know, here's your clue. It's Pride Month. And all month we're celebrating LGBTQIA. And so this week we wanted to focus on some authors and talk about our experiences reading books that feature the spectrum of the gay community. So I'm actually going to turn time over to Will on this one, because Will has some pre-drawn up questions that me and Marshall don't really know about yet.
I don't see any questions.
So,
you don't?
Oh, no, I do. I see him.
Okay. I was going to be like, oh, God, your eyes are getting a little worse than your age.
No, I'm getting old.
I'm kidding. I'm older.
I know, right?
Okay, but Botox helps me. So I really wanted to, for this episode, I am going to mention a lot of really great LGBTQIA authors. And it's just a tiny portion of what I've read and what Nick and Marshall also have read. So that goes back to the whole point of Instagram, is to really that every episode, we're not going to be able to talk about all the books that we love, but every day we will be posting a book that one of us have read that we really love. And no, there will be never any negative speak about any of the authors that we have on here. It just will never happen, because writing is hard. Being a creative person is hard, and you're putting something out there. So we will only speak of the things that we really love. So I'm actually going to interview the both of you. And I put some general questions up here, but I feel like we're going to divert a little bit from this. So first, I want to ask both of you, what are, or just one, a book that you've read that featured someone from the LGBTQIA plus community? Just what book first? Let's just go with that first. Like, what book did you read that featured that was your first time of an introduction of that?
Oh, a first time?
Yeah.
So the first time is going to be a little tougher.
I think since we though all write science fiction and fantasy, let's use it for that lens.
Okay.
So what was the first time that you remember? And it doesn't need to be let's not even say the first time that you actually read it. What was the first time that made an impression on you, that opened you, and that really made you think like, oh, like, of course, or I've never seen that done before? Nick, you can start.
I'm going to go. So N.K. Jemisin, the Broken Earth series, the first book is where it's really fascinating. And I don't want to throw out spoilers though. So I want to word this carefully, but basically it made an impact because you thought this one character was so, I guess you could say like a cis male, and the way he acted and things like that. Then all of a sudden they get into a situation with a not like And to me, I didn't see it until it happened. And I was like, oh, the writing's been on the wall the entire time. Like, this was very cleverly done. It turns out the character is bisexual, which I personally don't think it's highlighted enough in a lot of things. But it was one of those where it's a bisexual character. It was this or that, didn't really matter to them. And that's also the same impression I got in Game of Thrones with Oberyn, and kind of like the whole feeling from the Dornish people on sexuality is, if you're making love, you're making love. Is if it's pleasure, it's pleasure. Who cares who's it with? I would say those two have been the most impactful on me as a writer, but especially me as a reader.
What about you, Marshall?
I changed my mind partway through when Nick was talking. And I know, and it's weird to say this, so in my head at first, because I really went with a focus lately to try to broaden this aspect, for example, in my reading, right? And speaking with you and going on the cruise and stuff, I've been reading more stuff. For example, Gideon the Ninth. I love that book. I absolutely love that book. And so that was the one I was gonna talk about. But then I thought about what I've taught my students, and I'm looking at my desk and I have this copy, and I know I keep talking about this, but I love this play, but no exit. There's a character, one of the three characters, in that text, in that play, is gay, and her torture is being in love with this woman who's not in love with her, but in love with the man. And that always had an impact on me. That was kind of like, and in teaching it to my students too, it was like, so we analyzed why these things are torture for them, because she can never have the only thing that she was misunderstood in life, and now in death, she's dealing with this as well. Right. So I know that's outside of what you said. It's not really sci-fi or fantasy. It's a play, but that just jumped out at me when I saw the book sitting on my desk. But my runner-up would be Getting the Ninth, because that book is absolutely phenomenal.
So let's go ahead, Nick.
I was going to say, what I loved about Getting the Ninth is, and this is coming from someone who hasn't read a lot of LGBTQ books and things like that. It wasn't so much in your face, like, oh, we're gay, right? It was, okay, they're gay. Who cares? Continue and write a great story, right? And that's what I appreciated about it. And if that makes any sense, where it wasn't,
well, it's part of the world, and it wasn't like a stigma. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well,
it is what it is.
Let's unpack that statement for a minute of what you just said. That it wasn't in your face, right? What does that mean? Because when I hear that coming from you, I mean, like, we're friends, but when I hear that a lot from like straight men or straight women, what does that mean to you? Because how I observe that, right? Like, as a gay person, when I hear that a lot of times, it can come across as, I don't want to say it's not offensive, maybe sometimes hurtful, in the way, like, when people are like, for me growing up, it was, well, you're so feminine. You know, why does it always have to be in your face? And you're thinking, well, I'm just being myself, and this is just who I am. So can we unpack that about, like, that statement that you said?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Like, what did you mean by that? Like, what of it?
Yeah, and I'll first recognize this is definitely not the right thing to say, but I couldn't think of anything else at the time. So I do apologize if I did offend you.
You didn't offend me. I mean,
I think the wording in that statement is what people say. And it is the absolute wrong thing to say. But I think what I do like about Getting the Ninth, and what I meant by piggybacking on his statement, was that it was part of the world, and it was part of what's going, and it was part of the characters.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, and what people mean, I think and I'm talking for Nick right now too, because this happens, and I've heard this statement a lot, and it's not in your face. What people are trying to say, and it's saying it in the wrong way, is that it should be just part of the world and part of the characters and what's going on. But I think what some of these other folks are saying is that it didn't offend them because it wasn't so overt, or it didn't.
She has sex in those books.
Oh no, absolutely. But do you see what I'm saying though?
Yes, but now I want Nick to actually answer, because I want him to unpack that for himself.
Look at this. Well,
sorry, I was trying to help.
Dear listeners, I literally told them right before this that no, I'm actually going to interview you, because I feel like we have to talk about this as writers, and especially when you're writing the other. So I feel like this is a safe place. This is where we should talk about it, and we should be open and just honest. So go ahead, Nick. So unpack that. What did you mean?
Yeah. So I'm actually, going back, Marshall said it better than I did. It was just part of the world. Right. It was just something that it wasn't saying I don't have anything else to say to compare it to, but what I enjoyed about it was it's just part of the world. It is what it is. Same when Marshall, what's that show that we watched on Netflix?
Yeah. There was the Black Mirror episode.
No. Yeah. No. Oh, maybe. No,
wait,
I'm thinking that's a good one, by the way.
That was a good one, right?
No, it's a space show with Battlestar Galactica girl.
Another world. Another life.
Another life. Yes. I want to say there's a trans character. There's 2 or 3 gay characters.
Yeah.
And what I liked about that was it was never a big deal. It is what it is. No one brought attention to it in a negative manner. Does that make sense? Or am I totally off on a tangent here?
No, I don't. I think I'm understanding what you're saying. It's you are saying that them being gay wasn't the focus of the issue.
Right.
Yes.
It was just they are gay, and it's just the episode.
Because I think the problem was, and this was, and again, and we had this conversation last time we had you on the show, Will, too, with when you asked us what we read from Black authors, right? We were talking about that, and it's so people have an expectation, obviously, and when they go into reading authors, right? When they go reading a work, right? And if they know who the author is, they have something comes along with that. And whether it's a bias, it's whatever you want to say it is. And that comes along with it. So for example, if you know a book is written by a Black author out the gate, you're going to assume race and stuff is going to come into play, right? That's just what people do when they go to read stuff, right? And I think that's the problem with the statements it wasn't in your face. It's okay, there's going to be gay characters and stuff like that, but I think what gets the wrong people upset is that it didn't offend them by having that in there. Do you know what I mean? Because they went into it knowing that if it was done in a certain way, it would offend them. Does that make sense?
100%. So I think what's interesting also is I think there's a lot of things that aren't being said, is that as a gay person, when I read Tamsyn Muir's Gideon the Ninth, we are allowed to be whole people.
Yeah.
And unfortunately,
and having a full arc, and
you don't see that in media. Now you are there's definitely hope. Progress is being made. But which this also is a great segue for my next question for both of you is, now that you've read these characters, how many LGBTQIA plus people have you actually put in your stories?
3. And I just want to quick side note here. I'm crying actually, because what you just said about what you loved about it is you felt like a whole person because of that book. And on so many different levels, it's so sad that it's taken this long for you to find a whole character that encompasses what your life is, And I don't know. I'm maybe over emotional over here, shedding some tears. And I'm just, I want to see what happens, another 50 years from now. And hopefully we don't have to deal with these issues anymore.
Well, and that was similar to the conversation we had the last time too. We were talking about when we, there would be one Black character in a show, and if it was a horror movie, Homeboy was going to die. Right. you know, he was going to die. He didn't have an arc.
Mhm.
He just happened to be the black friend, and he was destined to be killed within the first 15 minutes. Right.
Yeah.
And these are tropes that you've seen forever. And then, like we talked about, and we talked about Black Panther and how much I love that film, and how the entire film, you know, centers around black characters with full arcs, and they're the heroes straight up, you know? And that's a huge deal. You know what I mean? And yeah, we keep coming back to movies and stuff like that. But again, this is, I think, people coming into these things with these preconceived notions is why they say things that are offensive, you know, like we were tiptoeing around a minute ago. You know what I mean? I forgot where we were going.
So my question is, how many LGBTQIA plus characters have you put in your stories, if any? And if you didn't, like, I think this is what also I want listeners to understand. If you didn't, there's no one pointing a finger at you. The reason I'm asking this is for you two, like, Marshall, how many have you put in your stories?
I have a few. Actually, in one of the short stories I wrote, I shared it with Nick, I think. I don't think I shared it with you.
No, I don't think I got
I think that was before we met, I think. The My Baby story, the one I wrote. Remember that one, Will? Not Will. Sorry, Nick.
I don't know if I heard
the spaceship one.
Yeah.
So, and I have a couple. I have one in my novel and one in my other novel. And again, I feel like I'm doing it wrong. Like that one short story I'm talking about, the one short story I'm talking about centers on the fact that, and again, he's gay from the beginning. There's no issue about it, and at the end is a really touching little moment. There's a touching moment at the end. And again, I feel like I did a decent job with it, but I feel like I don't have a frame of reference either. You know what I'm saying? But I feel like I'm guilty of doing the same exact thing we were just talking about, as having the one black character or the one or two female characters instead of having just people, you know, all these people.
And I'm right there with you, Marshall, because I find myself like, and I want to make sure it doesn't feel forced when I'm adding in these types of characters, female characters, LGBTQIA.
And what you mean by that is characters that are not exactly who you are, right?
Yeah.
You're writing another character, right?
Right. Writing the other, if you will. I don't want to ever feel forced. So I think I'm overconscious of that at times, to where like I'm, you know, again, frame of reference too, like I'm not quite sure what I'm doing with some of these characters. Gonna be honest there.
But like, I mean, I have a lot of gay friends, family, you know, all of that. And I could reach out, and I've spoken to these people, and I've loved these people forever. And I know that I can do it. But at the same time, why in a whole novel do I still only have like one character still? Am I afraid to write more than one? Is that the problem? Like, I'm asking you, Will, like, this is the same thing with the token black guy who's going to die in 15 minutes. Like, hey, I have him. You see him. Okay.
That's, you know, the magical Negro that Maurice talks about.
Exactly.
Yeah. And Stephen King does that, and I love him. Yeah. But he writes the magical Negro.
He does. A lot.
But so this is great that you're asking this, because I think this goes back to my next question. What do you think the challenges are for both of you writing characters that are from like the LGBTQIA plus community? What are your challenges?
Say it again.
Misrepresentation. So, and this just goes through my background. Like, I mean, maybe I'm putting myself out there, and probably some of you caught it with my comment earlier. Like 3 or 4 years ago, like who I was then when I thought about people is different than what I know now. Like, and that, not saying I hated people back then, but it was like I didn't have any interaction with a lot of people from that community. And now
education too, and that's a big part of it.
Yeah, right. And now that I'm involved, and I'm, you know, whoa, you and I talk every single day now. Like, 3 years ago, I couldn't tell you if I had a gay friend that I liked. And I had, you know, and I knew some people who were gay from high school that I kept up with once in a while. But I didn't connect with them I didn't have a personal relationship like that. So it's totally different now, but it's misrepresentation. I don't understand enough. I haven't lived those experiences. And because I don't want to misrepresent some of like the closest people to me right now, I'm afraid to write that character.
And for me, I don't know if it's misrepresentation. It's more, I honestly, I don't know. Honestly, like, I feel like as some of the relationships that I've had with my gay friends, like, and, you know, family and extended family and stuff like that. Like, I don't really necessarily have a problem going there at all. I just think for some reason, up until relatively recently, I mean, and I grew up in the 90s, man. I mean, in the 90s were, like some of the stuff. I mean, you grew up in the 90s too, Will. You know, I mean, it's.
What are you talking about? I grew up in the 2000s.
Oh my God, dude. I mean, it's like, I cringe thinking about the conversations and things that people were having, like, you know, in high school and stuff like that. And it's like, and I feel like the only reason I haven't done it more is I'm not conscious that I should be, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, I really don't have a good explanation, and it's a little disappointing, honestly.
So good. This is why we need to talk about it, because this is what's going to make us better people and better writers. Mm-hmm. So I think the biggest thing is this. I don't think the own voices comes into play a lot about this, right? But I think when you're trying to tell a story of coming out or surviving as someone who's gay, that is a different thing of saying is if you're a cis straight male, should I be telling this story? Mm-hmm. And also too, can I do it justice? But what I think is different is that as science fiction and fantasy writers, we can write the other without telling that specific story, because guess what? Gay people can also have adventures and be heroes. Mm-hmm. And if that's all you wrote, that's amazing. Right. Because it has nothing to do with a lot of the social issues that we're talking about. If you build a world where being gay is no big deal, but that is still the star of your hero, and they're falling in love and they're doing everything that anything else would be, that's awesome. Right. So I do feel like it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to get it wrong. What's not okay to me is to not try. Right. That's just not okay to me. It's also not okay to just be so afraid of something that you don't do it, because fear, and everyone can tweet this quote because I love it. Fear is the cock blocker of life.
I love it.
Okay. And why do I want to say Betty White on that
one? And again, it's not honestly, and now that and I know in my current work in progress, one of the characters is gay, but again, it's the one, right? But I think if and the works that I'm working on, the bigger pieces are left over from you know, I started them a couple years ago, at least, if not a decade ago with my other piece, you know? So I think revisiting that, I think it's time to, expand upon some of that, you know what I mean? And if you're talking about science fiction and fantasy too, it's like, okay, I've created races too, and then they fall in love with other races. You know what I mean? And that kind of thing. So there's other things going on in science fiction and fantasy as well that you can don't have to feel so afraid of, I suppose. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So let's also, I want to hyper focus this just on transgendered characters. Mm-hmm. Have you written them into your stories?
I started a piece. Yes. This was in October in response to the issue that you guys are fairly aware of. You know, my youngest is trans, and that's something I want to bring into my work, and something I want to discuss with him and deal with, try to tell a version of what he's been going through in this piece. So I did start a piece, and it's all dialogue, and it's somebody that's misgendering someone else, and it's just a barrage of it, and eventually the character just says, all right, fuck you, you know what I mean, because you won't stop, you know what I mean, and so I felt like with everything going on around that particular moment when I was writing that, that's how I would feel if I projected, if my kid knew what was going on, that's what he'd be saying. You know what I'm saying? And so, yes, to your answer, yes, I have started it and I plan to. Yes.
Nick.
I'm not running a trans character. And that's just due to the world building that I have set up. I have not, because mine kind of involves brain chips. So I haven't decided if that's a social issue I want to tackle in my world quite yet, to where it's included, at least in this first novel, of like, because there's always that thought process of like, well, what if they just decided every time someone comes out as trans, they just put this chip in their brain and then all of a sudden they're matching with the gender of their birth. You know, and again, I'm not sure if I want to tackle that type of issue. And so if I do write a trans character in the novel that you're reading, I'm going to have it to where trans is just like anything else. I want to normalize it, if you will, where people are free to choose and kind of just live that way the way they need to. I mean, half my people have brain implants for cell phones, so, you know, and robotic arms and limbs and stuff.
Yeah, I think in science fiction, we can tell really powerful stories, specifically with transgendered characters. And also say this as a gay person, and I have friends who are trans, lots of them actually, because I live in New York and LA, and because of what I do. What's interesting to me, though, is it is something that I want to include in my work. I have in some of my short stories, but in a way, again, it goes back to I don't want to tell someone's transition story or their funneling through that. I want them to be trans characters that are having an adventure and are the heroes or the villains. And the villain part has nothing to do with the reveal of their actual gender, right?
Yeah.
If you look at old movies like The Crying Game, I don't know if you all saw that, but at the end of the film, and this is a spoiler if anyone hasn't seen it, it turns out that the trans woman, you know, is realized that she has a penis, and the guy who realized it goes up and throws up and is like disgusted by it,
right?
Which enrages me on multiple levels. Because of what the media proposes about trans people.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's horrible, but I don't want to write that story. I want to write a story where my trans characters are having just as much fun and are just as kick-ass and badass as my gay, lesbian, bisexual, non-binary, straight characters, Black, Asian, like whatever I'm creating.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So in a world where you just want a trans character to be on an adventure, how do you bring it up and mention that they're trans? Because if it's just part of everyday life and it's just kind of normal, like how do you do that in a way that isn't offensive to the trans population?
I think that's when you have to have someone who is against it, and when you have that moment where they are misgendered, or something like that, or someone from their past that knew them as something else completely. You know what I'm saying? I think that's part of it.
I also think the next part is, what trans authors do you read? And this, I think what I've tried to challenge myself to do, especially in the last 3 to 5 years, is to read outside of what I identify with. And I make it a point. This is why, you guys know, I read a ton, but I love reading.
Understatement of the year.
Yeah. Like Charlie Jane Anders, she is brilliant.
She's on my list.
I just love her brain. I love her brain. I love her. I love her and Annalee Newitz podcast, Our Opinions Are Correct, talking about science and science fiction. So I think the first thing is, when we're at writers, that we seek out reading what trans people are writing, both in our genre, science fiction and fantasy, but also others, and really look at how other people have written trans characters. That's the first thing. Then it is to get an actual sensitivity reader.
Yeah.
I think especially with everything going on now, there was GLAAD put out a thing, and don't quote me on this, I'll find it out, but GLAAD put out a report of this year, or was it 2019, 27 trans women were murdered for being trans. And out of that, 24 of them were Black. So it made me think a lot about what I write. And I think it is important that we, when you are writing the other, that you're not telling their story, but you're putting them in the story because they exist. Like this is not being the diversity checklist. This is including people to make sure your world isn't homogenous.
Yeah, because it's part of the world. It's part of the world that we know, and so including everybody that exists in the world is important. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I have homework for both of you and for our listeners.
Yes.
I want you to go watch the documentary called Disclosure. It is an hour and a half long. It is about transgendered people. And what we don't focus enough on, I think, in transgender, we always think of men, transitioning towards women. But there is also this transmasculine thing that tends to also not get. And another thing that you really want to look at too is that, not everyone who's trans wants to pass as what we consider women or men. And as writers, like I always think back of Ursula Le Guin's The Left Hand of Darkness, about how they could switch genders and it was very gender and sexual fluid. I think that book's amazing. But I think everyone, if you're listening, to watch that documentary is both heartbreaking, touching, and it's empowering.
Yeah.
Because you see what members of the trans community go through, and specifically about how the Black transgendered people have enriched our culture. And I'm just going to throw this down right now. Everyone talks about Madonna's Vogue back from the 90s, and she brought Vogue out. Madonna appropriated voguing.
Oh, yeah.
You need to watch the movie Paris is Burning, and you will see gay people, you will see transgendered people, transgendered Black women, transgender Black men, and watch that document, because if you want to understand, to connect to trans characters, because they quoted a thing that GLAAD said, 80% of Americans don't know anyone who's trans. So how are they funneling all of their messages? Through media. Mm-hmm. And how is that media seen? For the majority of it, they are seen as, when they reveal their gender, because that's what it's been so focused on, as disgusting, angry, vomiting.
Right.
That is not true. You're taking the humanity out of people. I think at one point, all of us have been made fun of or torn down. And that is a focus point to know of how you want to write and how you can build empathy with people.
Yeah, that's perfect.
So this one time I decided to be on a podcast, and at the beginning of each episode, my co-host made fun of me and called me Karen.
Is that how you were torn down?
Oh, Karen.
Will literally said, "I'm breaking you down."
Well, and another thing too, and if you, I don't know, and that's one of the things that in my real job or my day job, whatever you want to call it, I co-run the Spectrum Club on campus, and trying to give a safe space to the LGBTQ community on my little tiny campus. And there's quite a lot more than you think that just want a place to be, that they're not going to get made fun of. They have two teachers sitting there that are willing to listen to them and help them. We were instrumental in getting the, gender neutral bathrooms put in and that kind of stuff. And this is something that is super important to help understand where folks are coming from, is by listening and asking these questions too. You know what I mean? And asking what pronouns they prefer, and honoring that, and owning when you screw it up, and moving forward and supporting them. And like I said, and your homework is perfect, Will, is, educating, listening to these stories and seeing what we can do in our writing. And of course, sensitivity readers are huge, very important.
100%. So, Marshall, since you spoke about Zoe's journey, will you just share with everyone like the difference you saw in him when you were using the right pronouns?
Yeah, it's
for Zoe.
Well, and it all the day it changed was when he asked to get his hair cut, and that was the day when we cut his hair. Was the day that he says, "I want to be he. Can you use he?" And we were like, "Yeah, of course." And he's never upset when people get it wrong. My mom still screws it up sometimes. My in-laws, I mean, people still screw up. And it's frustrating for me and my wife, but at the same time, it's to know that I'm getting it right and that it's right for him. All of these other things made so much sense, and I could see a more relaxed version of my child, to where he knew that he was being seen and it was okay to be who he was, and it's huge, and it has not been easy, and it's been a couple of years, and he's young, and people have their bullshit around it, and I don't care. You know what I mean? There's no scenario I don't support my kid ever,
Yeah.
And if he wants to go by they, them at some point, great. That's fine with me too. I don't care. I want him to be happy, and I want him to know that we see him regardless, and that is the biggest hurdle, I feel like, for that particular community, is being seen. And like you said, man, I mean, to be having adventures and being part of the narrative, that's huge, and I see him, he's writing his little comics and he builds his avatars in the video games and just the outfits, and it's just amazing, and I love it. And he knows he has that freedom with us, and there's a lot of anxiety going on in the world for him and for the LGBTQ community. I know it, but again, having the safe space and knowing that the people around you are supporting you is a huge thing. So I don't know. I should probably tell my wife I talked about this, but anyway.
No, thank you for sharing. I think because I want everyone to know who's listening is that, Marshall's coming from a place of being a parent of a transgender child. I'm coming from a place of being a part of the gay community. And there are issues even in the gay community of racism, of being trans, and it blows my mind. And Nick is coming from a place of being our token white guy on here. I know,
and he's amazing.
But
he's so good at it.
But yeah, exactly. But see, the thing is that he is accepting, and he does have questions. And I don't want people to think
do I have questions?
Yeah, but we are going to have trans writers on here that we're going to interview, and we are going to spotlight them, because that is a big part of building a community, that you have every single person as much as possible being represented, because no one is a monolith.
Well, a true community is including everybody, and building a safe community, knowing that we're not excluding folks. If they want to be a writer, be a writer. Everything else is what it is,
and bring it on, because we need unique stories.
Exactly.
There are a few authors I want to highlight for Pride that I want to talk. That I want Nick and Marshall to pick one to read.
I already read one. I see one on this list, man.
Julian Winters. He wrote 2 books, How to Be Remy Cameron and Running with Lions. The reason I love Julian so much is because it was the first story that I read that was a young adult contemporary that was happy, had a happy ending. And it is my favorite book to reread when I'm down, because it is not always about coming out, actually. How to Be Remy Cameron is about these labels we put on each other. The character is adopted, and he's Black, and he's trying to figure out who he is, and he's also gay, and he falls in love and has adventures. And Julian just writes these really relatable characters that even if you're not gay, like, you would identify with as being a teenager. And how to the one book that he wrote, Running with Lions, is about the gay kids being on the soccer team, and it's not an issue. No big deal. In fact, the coach in the book is like, if you have a problem with it, you are off the team, right? Because that is the world that we want to create, right? It's the world that is creating right now. I've mentioned Adam Silvera before. His books aren't always the happiest, but they're really well.
So I'm looking on Audible as you're talking because I love Audible and I've got some credits to burn and I do want to do my homework. Like you told me. Adam Silvera, it has several books on here. They both died.
At the End is great.
Okay, so that one I'll bookmark. Okay.
And that tells you the end.
Okay.
Not what happens.
Makes sense. Yes.
You won't find Julian Winters on Audible because he works with Interlude Press, which is an amazing small publishing company that specifically targets the LGBTQIA plus community without the kill your gays tropes. And in mystery, in nonfiction, in science fiction. So Interlude Press is great because they publish, they're a small press, but they publish, stories within the gay community, and they're happy. No one is killing the gays tropes, which is great. And then Not My Sidekick is one of the other books that's like, I would say middle grade to young adult, that features all Black, Indigenous people of color on that frame, and they're having adventures. They're like allowed to be whole beings.
Nice.
Another writer I really love is River Solomon, An Unkindness of Ghosts. They write beautiful fiction and fantasy / sci-fi. And also Tamsyn Muir, who we talked about, Gideon the Ninth.
Yeah.
Which Harrow the Ninth comes out in September. And then Charlie Jane Anders, Annalee Newitz, they are both amazing writers. They're just some of the people that, I wanted to mention on the podcast. But again, go to our Instagram because we're going to be highlighting all of these people, in the next coming days and weeks. And we're going to continue to do so.
And thank you for doing that. And thank you for joining our team. And I can't thank you enough for this conversation because we went, I don't know where, I didn't know in the beginning where we were going to go. And I know you well enough to know that it was going to go somewhere. It was everything I hoped it would be. So,
awesome.
Not only I want to say thank you for joining the show, but also, I can't wait to see what our community does next. So.
And thank you for putting up with me.
We have to have you, Nick. Come on.
Yeah, we're happy you're here too, Nick.
Hey, I'm just saying, sometimes I say things and I don't know what I'm saying.
No, but this is the whole point, that you're in a safe space where you can say it.
From the day we met, Nick, within the first half an hour, how many questions did you ask me? And that went on for 7 hours or so?
I'm sorry, that wasn't until we hit.
Okay, yeah, we got to the beach and then
10. We had at least 2 days to hang out before I was like, I got questions.
Nah, there were some before that, but anyway, yes.
But you were like, you know what? Let's get some beers on the beach tomorrow.
As long as I get some beers, we're good. I'll answer all your questions.
I am a question person. When it comes to something that I've never experienced, I want to ask you all the questions that I possibly can to understand your experience. And I try my best not to be offensive.
And Will and myself, we both tell you when you are offensive and why it's offensive, and then
Yeah, that's all I ask for.
And then you evolve.
Exactly. And we love watching your evolution, by the way.
Yeah, I think it's exciting and it's nice.
I said it's weird because I'm recognizing it and it's like, oh man. You're
growing.
This is why I'm giving everyone the homework to watch the documentary Disclosure. I think there's a lot of things I've learned, and I think there's lots of things that everyone can learn, and you can know what is appropriate to ask and appropriate, and also so you have a wider space of history for people that you probably didn't know. Because none of us grew up in history class learning about Stonewall. None of us grew up learning about, transgendered people as whole people.
Right.
We grew up learning about these jokes or things. That's why like I'm really passionate about this documentary, because I think it is really well done. And it's just one part of the puzzle.
Awesome. So you got your homework, people. This has been Just Keep Writing, a podcast for writers by writers to keep you writing. Check out our website at justkeepwriting.org. You can find links to our social media and Discord channel in the show notes, as well as any other links mentioned during the show. If you want to support the show, the best way to do that is patreon.com/justkeepwriting. Thanks for listening.
Now just keep writing.